Hi, my name is Deb Matias, and I'll be completing the last of the series of APA presentations. And the topic we'll be discussing today is going to be references. So in our content, we'll go over pretest. Again, during the pretest, I'll read the question. You can then pause that so that you have some time to actually look at the question and answer it. And again, at the end, we'll go over the answers in the post-test. During this presentation, we'll also be looking at Chapter 6 and 7 in your APA manual, which covers references, including the formatting, how to actually write single, multiple authors, or same authors with multiple citations. We'll talk about writing references with different publication dates. How do you go about using reference identifiers, and some of the different types of references that you'll most commonly use while you're completing your degree. So the first question is, based on the following information, what is the correct citation for the following book? Again, if you'd just like to go down below and just pause to give yourself a moment to read over the responses, and just take your time. Again, we'll review each of these questions at the end of the presentation. Question number 2, which one of the following references are written correctly? And the last question, question number 3, you download an article from the internet in a PDF format. This article is noted to have a DOI number. When referencing this article, you should include Great. So again, this is just beginning, and by the time we finish the presentations, you should be able to go back through those questions and answer them correctly. So just to go over some of the basics of formatting. And again, this is really important when you get to your reference section to kind of tick these off and to make sure that your format is correct. So you're always going to start your reference page beginning on a new page. So that's going to start. Reference is on a new page. You're going to have 1-inch margins all the way around. Again, references, the word references should be in the center at the top of the page. And again, it is not bold. And again, that's a common mistake, is to want to bold that center highlight. So again, references listed at the top, centered and not bold. We're also using double spacing with all of our references. When we list our references, the first line of each reference should be flush with the left margin, and then the remaining lines underneath should be indented 1 inch. And again, you can put this into your computer so that you have what's called a hanging indent. Also, you want to list your references in alphabetical order according to the author's surname or last name. Again, you're using their first and middle initial only. And you don't include any titles. So it's not PhD, APRN. You're just including their first and middle initial. For example, my last name is Matias. There's a space, there's a D, a period, a space, an M, capital M, period, and then a space. So again, don't forget those spaces. If you don't have an author that's listed, the article title is going to come first. Then you're going to place the date after the article title. So just to show you a sample of reference page, again, it's on its own page. Reference is centered. It's not in bold. Again, you're going to have your articles or your books. Your references are going to be in alphabetical order. Again, you can see that the beginning of the first line is going to be all the way to the left margin, and then you have a hanging indent on the line below. So let's talk a little bit about authors and same authors, multiple citations. So if you have one author, you're going to list that author before the date. Now again, this is where it gets a little tricky. If you have 2 to 7 authors, you're going to separate the authors with commas and use the and sign before the last author's name, followed by the date. However, if there's more than 7 authors, you're going to separate the first 6 authors with commas. Then you're going to use a space, dot, 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 a space, and then you're going to connect that to the last author of that publication. And you can see here where we have all of the authors listed, and this would actually be the last author that's listed for this particular article. Now, publication dates. Not all the time do all of our articles have a date, or in some instances, the article has not yet been published. So you use ND in parentheses if there's no date after the author's name. If you have a work that has not yet been published and it's in press, you're going to use in press after the author's name. Now, if you have the author that has more than one cited reference, for example, and we have Mark D in 2008, and we also have an article Mark D in 2016, you're going to list the earliest first. However, if you have multiple citations with the same author, you're going to list the single author first, regardless of the date. So you can see in this instance, Mark D, 2016, but Mark D also published with Matthias D in 2014. So in this instance, we're going to list Mark D because it's the single author first, although it is the latest article that was published by Mark D. So reference identification. What exactly is a DOI number? A DOI number is really a string of letters and numbers that have been given by the International DOI Foundation. And the purpose of a DOI is to then have a persistent link to that article. Now, you know that sometimes if you put down a URL number, not all the time when you go back to that URL number are you able to locate the article. But in this instance, if you have a DOI number, you'll always be able to find that article. That's always going to exist. Now, DOIs first started in about 2000. However, even articles before 2000 are now being given DOI numbers. So you should see that. You can also find out if any of your articles have DOI numbers by going to the link HTTP and going to the crossreference.org. And I've given you that link there where you can actually go in there and see if any of your articles have DOI numbers. So you're always wanting to include a DOI number if it's available. Okay. And that can be print or electronic sources. Now, you're only going to use a URL number if the internet source has no DOI. And what you're going to do is if it doesn't have a DOI, you're going to have to write retrieved from, then the URL number or the Uniform Resource Locator. What you don't want to do, which in the past in APA, you used to always say retrieved on a specific date. But now you do not include the date. You're just going to write retrieved from and then the URL number. So let's give you an idea of some of the types of references you're going to see. Now, the scary thing is there is at least 77 different types of references in APA style. So really, when in question, please go to the manual and look at the manual to make sure that you're referencing appropriately. I'm going to cover some of the most common reference types, and those are going to that you're going to be using, and those are books, journal articles, government reports, online books, and electronic media. So if we have 7 or fewer authors, again, we're going to have the surname, the first and middle initials of the author, copyright date, title of the book, edition, the city, state, and publisher. If we have, again, more than 7 authors, again, if you could take a look at this here, we're going to list the first 6, and then we're going to have a space, the dot, 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 space, and then the last author. Followed up with, again, the title, as we had before, the copyright, the edition, the city, and the publisher. Again, if we're looking at not just a book, but a book chapter, you're going to again have to include the surname and the initials, the year of the publication, but then following that, you're going to put the title of the chapter, the editor's name with initials before the surnames, and then the title of the book, the page of the chapter, the city, the state, and the publisher. So a little different when you're just referencing a chapter versus an entire book. Now, what we most commonly are using is journal articles. So if we have a journal article in print, again, we're going to go with our surname and initials, the publication date, the title of the article, the name of the journal and volume number. Okay, and that is going to be italicized, and then issue number if it is needed, okay, if there's an issue number, and then you're going to include all of your page numbers. So you can see that here that we're including 79 all the way through 82. And in this instance, we do have a volume, which is volume 14, but we don't have an issue number. Again, if we have a journal article retrieved from the internet with no DOI, you can see that we use the URL number retrieved from, and then a journal article with a DOI number. So instead of using the URL, we're using the DOI. So if it has a DOI, use the DOI number. Now, government reports, very common. You'll be accessing government reports. So you want to list the agent, the publication date, the report title is in italics, report number in parentheses, and then the URL number. Sometimes we also use online versions of a printed book. Again, that's a little bit different. You may need to use the URL number. For example, with a Kindle version, you've got the author, the publication date, the title in italics, the version. So in this case, this is a Kindle version, and then where did you retrieve that book or document. And again, one of the last ones we'll take a look at is online videos, because I know we still, at times use those as resources. So in this case, we want the primary contributor, the date of the video, the title, followed by the video file, and where did you retrieve that? So that's going to be from using a URL number. So hopefully we've covered some of the highlights. However, again, it's best to go and refer to chapter 6 and 7 of the manual if you have any questions. So post-test, question 1 is based on the following information, what is the correct citation for the following book? And the answer is B. Tuckman, B.W. and Manetti, DM, 2010, Educational Psychology, Boston Math, Wadsworth, Centage Learning. Question 2, which of the following references are written correctly? And again, we go back, we see we have a DOI number. We have all of our authors listed with correct spacing. Again, only the first initial of the first word is capitalized in the title. We also have results from 1991 National Health Interview Survey. Again, we have our italics. The issue number is not italics. We have the full page number. So our answer is C. Again, you can see here this would not be correct because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, only 5 authors. Okay, so again, it's really important to take a look, and then here in A, we see capital letters, and so they should not all be capitalized. So again, in our last one, D is incorrect because we don't have a DOI number. And then the last question, you download an article from the internet in a PDF. This article is noted to have a DOI number. When referencing this article, you should include the DOI number only. So if you have a DOI number, you only need to include the DOI number. So hopefully we've given you some highlights. I know it can get really frustrating with doing the APA, but the more you work at it, the more you use your manuals and resources that are available, the easier it will get. And thank you.